So you are classifying weeds.
And if they can get
grass
groups
as
getting
weeds
in play
in order to
well
just
and lock him in, they could have a
legally
core.
regulate them all, so we don't have to say.
And they got this Henry Davidson of mine.
Yeah, somebody,
Another year,
yeah,
so
some
he'll be
grasses, somebody says a weed and
He's
somebody's not.
a stud.
Because they expect that way.
Of every year, so it's in the same category.
I was like, what kind of branding can I use for an agenda?
It goes down to the last step.
Right.
Win or lose, I want to see that chance.
And I had gotten a thing on, I guess, a Monday, but I didn't see it until Thursday.
Troy went in and hey, Kyle,
It's the
did
word.
you talk to Kyle about it?
Kyle gives me the other fellow. So I
And
don't
Troy
know.
said, yeah.
Look, see, I downloaded the thingy.
Does it have to be? Why is it?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Because Troy sent us an email, said he looked into it and it's.
Okay.
So it says we-
Rod,
Here.
Palazzo, Wowzer,
Here.
Ford,
Present.
Herring, Ratza, Lancaster,
Here.
Gold,
Here.
Steelman, Taylor, Warnock. 10 present, 2 absent.
To the agenda. We'll be having an executive session, but at the end. And there will be no action taken after the executive session, so.
Legal.
You have in your packet the minutes of the September council meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Of those minutes? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries. You also have the minutes of the September work session. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion of those minutes? By saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And finally, you also have the August financial report. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
The August financial report. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Now we come to time for public comments. The procedure, you have to say your name and address and
in Philadelphia Street, Indiana, Pennsylvania. I wasn't going to come to this, but there's been some things bothering me. So you're going to divide the borough in half, correct? So you're dividing. How are you going to split who's being eliminated from the borough council? And how are you doing that?
that's easy. Under state law, no currently serving member will lose his or her seat.
People have asked me that. You need to kind of put that out a little better. And then flipping around to other things here, I asked certain council members to have the borough maintenance people look at problems down Nixon Avenue. There's flooding down there. And when I walk down, the drains are completely covered or gone.
Or what part of Nixon Avenue?
No, let's see, that would be between 15th and 14th and down to 13th on Nixon Avenue. And other people have asked me, why me, You should be asking you, what about these back streets? Because they said they're starting to look like inner city ghetto streets. Oh, yeah, I was out on Church, and there's one drain there, it's already tilting down in, storm sewer drain. I was gonna have your maintenance supervisor come up to my street, but I really don't give a darn anymore. When I moved in there, that street was level and they still tarred and gravelled it. Then they blacktopped it. If you go there now, up by the nursery school in Nixon Avenue, it's level. Go down by Philadelphia Street, it's level. But for some unknown reason, in the middle there, those two, the street's going like this.
Well, that would be an issue for our Public Works Department.
Why? Is there old storm sewers? Like I said, any more folks, I don't care, because there's people on this council don't care. I've seen a council person come out of 8th Street and go straight across. And I thought, Chief, that was illegal to do that. And why would they be riding on a sidewalk?
Riding on the sidewalk is legal except on Philadelphia Street.
Well, it's down on down Wayne Avenue there. But then the Hoodlebug Trail's right over here. Why?
Someone's engaging in legal activity. There's no reason for us to question.
Okay, just wondered, putting themselves in danger. But, like I said, it's to a point in my life right now, I don't care. Because if I could get out of this borough, I would do like two very good friends of mine that have been in this borough as long as I have. They got out. One went to White Township, the other one, their family have lived in Indiana. It's 3 generations, they're gone. That's all.
Committee reports. Administration Committee, Chair Taylor is still, and I hope she's in, all right, she's in Florida taking care of her father who's hospitalized with COVID, but I don't know what part of Florida, so I don't know what. Orlando. Okay, well, it's not the eye of the storm. Anyhow, we trust everything is all right. So the Administration Committee, which I chaired in her absence. The report is in the packet, but we do have, we mostly went over budget, but we have the first is to adopt advertised. So that does not need require a roll call vote. However, are there any questions before we move on to vote? Yes.
Alonso,
Yes.
Devalder, Ford,
Yes.
Eric. Yes. Graxa,
Yes.
Lancaster.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Steelman. Yes. Warnock.
Yes.
Motion carries. We also have included in the packet a grant application for a DCED STMP grant. That's Department of Community and Educational Development, Economic Development, and STMP is, we call it STEM.
Strategic management.
the administration department, i.e. our manager, to apply for a grant for technology and equipment upgrades, which are sorely needed. So again, this does not need a second.
What, maybe just a technical question. From community development, there's going to be a motion to adopt the strategic management planning program report. Does that need to come first? That's different. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Apply for grant.
My understanding was one allowed you to do other grants and so forth, so.
To do the report. And then this is totally different.
Just want to make sure.
Okay. Any questions, other questions about this? Seeing none. Favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is a motion to advertise an ordinance reducing the number of wards within the Indiana Borough from 4 to 2. Again, this doesn't require a second. We have discussed this extensively. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Advertise. This is not the ordinance itself. This is vote to advertise the ordinance.
If there's a nay.
Yes. Okay, call the roll.
Rod,
Yes.
Alonso. Mauser,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Herring. Yes. Kratza,
Yes.
Lancaster.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Steelman,
Yes.
Warnock.
Yes.
Okay. And then one more from administration, a motion to advertise an ordinance reducing the number of council members serving on Borough Council from 12 to 8. Second, and we've discussed this and we've seen a schedule for how it's up on the road.
Probably just worth pointing out to, from public comment, that this ordinance does have the schedule in it. So if anyone's just concerned about that, it's pretty clearly there for folks, so they can read it when this is advertised.
And it will not take place until 2024, when that council gets seated. It'll be, the first election would be next year, 2023, and that'll be reflected on the ballot. But then when it'll take place with the council seated in 2024, you'll remain having 12 through next year.
Right. Council will remain unchanged all of next year. Unless somebody quits.
It's a bit of a next steps question. I think we're going to pass it, but there's got to be a pretty heavy communication strategy to get the word out about this over the next 6 to 8 months, whatever that looks like. I hope we can kind of see that pretty prominent, and probably spending some money on paid advertising to make sure that folks see that in their faces all the time.
I spoke with Kyle a little bit over email about, I was going to put together some informational posts to just give people some infographics of how things work and how things are going to change and not change.
Probably get a little organic help from the election. People running will be announcing, oh, how come so-and-so's, that sort of thing. Probably a little bit out there too, but I still think that's a good point to keep getting the word out.
For advertising. Okay, Laurie?
Rod,
Yes.
Alonso, Mauser,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Herring.
Yes.
Kratza, Lancaster.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Steelman. Yes. Warnock. Oh, yes. 11.
In the middle of things. Okay, and that's all I have from Administration Committee, unless there are any questions based on our minutes. Seeing none, Community Development.
So we get a couple of announcements and then we got a couple of action items as well. We did hit sort of extended comment from some employees in the Robinson Lytle Funeral Home in regards to any long-term plan to to close IRMC Park, North 7th Street. In general, their position currently is that they're okay with it being closed sometimes, but they're not really a fan of it being closed permanently. There are some downtown Indiana events coming up. Nicole, are you planning on covering those in your report? So this coming Saturday is Oktoberfest from 2 to 6 p.m. The last Saturday in October, DI is working with the Eagles to try and have a Halloween trick or treat event downtown. The wine walk is coming up on the 4th of November. And then everybody's favorite event, It's a Wonderful Life Festival, is going to start Friday, the 18th of November. And then we'll run for several weeks after that with the big tree and stuff in IRMC Park. Planning Commission is wrapping up stuff with the comprehensive plan. The next step will be public meetings on that to get public comment. That those meetings are still to be scheduled, but that's the next step. So you can look forward to that. The borough is going to contract with Stewart Group Consulting for basically economic development planning services. This was we budgeted for this last year in this budget. So there was a search that Manager Sipos ran. So that's who we'll be going with. So we'll have some additional help with that. And then there was an extended and fruitful conversation about the strategic management plan, the stamp from DCED. And so our first action item is a motion to move to adopt the strategic management planning program report as prepared by Hebert, Rowland, and Grubik Inc., HRG, and Downtown Redevelopment Services. And so that's a motion coming from the committee.
Second one listed in your packet.
Not bound by those rules, Peter.
We're not bothered. Are there any questions? Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
We also had a fairly lengthy discussion with Richard Rinkus, who's got some really interesting ideas for developing 8th Street. And so he came and sort of presented those to the committee. So all that discussion is in here. And then the last thing we have is a motion to basically move to adopt the advertised ordinance amending chapter 327, property maintenance. And this is in your packet. It pertains to the part of maintenance that has to do with lawns in particular.
This is correcting the fact that our ordinance didn't actually specify what we thought it did. You can't grow stuff over 6 inches. Any questions? Okay, so this is an ordinance. It's been advertised. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is everything from community development.
Questions from community development? Seeing none. Public safety.
Okay, we met on September 22nd. Among the things I just want to highlight, the police department did acquire 2022 Ford Explorer from TriStar Motors via co-stars with the American Rescue Plan funds. It's currently being marked and equipped. We also acquired a second 2022 Ford Explorer via TriStar Motors via co-stars with assistance of grant funding and Marcella Shell's money, and it needs to be equipped. It was also highlighted in the newspaper photograph. The police department got crime scene processing equipment from the PA Chiefs of Police Association with assistance of grant funding. I believe one of the officers attended the conference and applied for monies to get the equipment to process a crime scene. And we highlighted, we went over our budget. It was pointed out in 2021, 2022, we saw a total decrease in the police department budget of 6%. 4% was in 2021, 2% in 2022. And the budget this year is going to have a 1% increase for 2023's budget due to contract increases. And we have coming up, our current eligibility list for entry-level police is valid through December 3rd, and we have 2 eligible candidates remaining. Background investigations have been initiated on them, and the civil service testing for 2022, 2023 will occur on October 22nd. And applications, currently there's active recruitment occurring, and applications will be accepted until October 19th. And we had a long discussion. Hank Kukula was from parking was at our meeting, and manager Nicole Sipos. We all had a lengthy discussion. Mayor Simmons spoke about meter parking after stopping it after 5 p.m. in the evening. After a lengthy discussion, both Hank Kukula and Nicole Sipos said they'd like to keep it at 7 o'clock, and both agreed to meet and talk with downtown business owners regarding what they would like to see happen with the parking meters. And that's it.
Any questions for public safety? You're up here. I see something on the screen, but I can't read it, and I don't know whether we passed by somebody.
The electric bikes that folks are driving around on the streets. Is that a motorized vehicle? Do they need to have a physical driver's license? Utilize that.
So you have to be 16 years of age. There are some specific guidelines. I can get you the guidelines for the electric bicycle, but primarily it's 16 years of age.
The reason why I bring this up is because when I pulled out from 10th Street, made a right to Water Street, there was a gentleman on a bike flying down, a car behind him with a family, and he was on the far right of the street. He wasn't in the middle like a driving vehicle, and went like this and then cut across both lanes. The vehicle halted like terribly. Could have smeared him. And I did take it upon myself to follow him. And when he went down the alley, I pulled up and, it was just like, hey, if you're going to be on the street, you really need to be careful. Oh, why? What happened? I was like, wow, you almost got creamed by that car. So that makes me wonder if somebody has their license revoked for drunken driving and they resort to an electric bicycle, do they have to possess a license? Because if that's their alternative to driving, obviously they weren't careful enough the first time around. Now they're going to these bikes, and this guy really almost got it. He didn't have a helmet. He was just very, very careless. So I was just curious.
Bikes are fairly new, although we're seeing them more and more. We did have a fairly robust conversation at public safety about
If they're under a certain horsepower,
But-
they don't have to be licensed, because I did ask that question.
I can report all that at public safety in October, but generally the rider of an e-bike has to be 16. The bike has to include operable pedals, and the bicycle can't weigh more than 100 pounds. And every person operating a bicycle has to follow the applicable laws of the roadway. It's just a matter of observing a violation from the police perspective and making that stop.
Thank you.
It brings up a good point. I mean, there's a lot more e-bikes around. There's a lot more kids. I mean, there's a lot more people biking around, and to a large extent, that's a good thing. I think we want to see that, but we don't really have any infrastructure to help that. And we have a lot of paper, but we don't really have any markings on the road that would indicate to either bikes or cars that you may be sharing the road. We don't have any of that anywhere at all in the borough.
Put it together and go.
Sure, yeah. We don't really have any, we don't really do much in terms of education and what folks could do. So there's a lot of room for improvement.
Anything else for public safety?
So let's see, we met there September 29th. We had a long discussion. We had a plan that's been in the works for some time to alleviate some stormwater issues that were essentially eating the backyards of a number of residents on the, let's see, that's the east side of Philly, east side, describe that. Describe north side of Philly,
East End.
north of East End,
100 block.
north side, 100 block of, by the Water Street Park is what I want to say. Having a hard time with it. Exactly. So there's stormwater problems there. We've dealt with it for a while. Residents have come and said, you're not managing the stormwater. Our solution has been to build a road where there's a paper road. We had another couple of residents come in and sort of highlight the idea that if we build a road there, we're going to invite more traffic. And we said, well, building a road is going to help us with the stormwater. And you realize that we need the road for the pavement part, but not for the cars. And so we had a longer discussion about how can we sort of have our cake and eat it too at a park when we're trying to actively increase our sort of bike pedestrian awareness, friendliness. And so the conversation turned the project from going just to build a road into having staff kind of go back and look at it again and think, can we pave part of it that will alleviate the stormwater issues? And on the other parts, create a pedestrian walkway to create something that fits in with the Water Street Park there that we've been trying to upgrade for a long, long time. Nixon Avenue. So it's essentially extending Nixon Avenue there. This new road would, and that Nixon Avenue, it's an alley, but it's right next to a park again, and there's no real barrier there. We've had folks come to say, hey, let's improve that. So that opening conversation kind of changed one of the projects we've been thinking about in terms of building that road, and it kind of opened it up to, and we still asked staff and our engineers to kind of go back and is there possible? It saves money if we only build half a road. Whether it makes sense, I think we're sort of asking our staff to look at again. So that was kind of an exciting conversation that I thought was really positive.
One interesting highlight on that, there was an insert from the Tourist Bureau in the Gazette last week about the various parks in the county, and it said that park is in White Township.
Lies, lies. It's definitely in the borough, and it definitely could use some.
We get them to fund it.
It definitely could use some attention, and this is an opportunity to maybe just put some attention there. Sarah.
Maybe for the people who haven't walked over that area as much as Peter and I and you have, where the swamp is next to a parking lot and the Department of Health building. The park itself and the playground are down in the next block. And of course, there's been a road there probably as long as there's been a park and a playground. And it will be, I mean, if our engineers think that we can pave over the existing swamp and stop it from growing that way, that's really good news. But considering the way that thing has spread over the last 5 years, we definitely want a professional engineering look at it.
So that's the good news. We have had a professional engineering look at it. Our engineers have designed a project that builds a whole road, and what we're actually asked them to do is go back and kind of think of it and think about another plan. So absolutely, we only have the professional engineers working for us. We don't have any amateurs.
The purpose of the road
to the whole road, and that's why I'm wondering if half a road will do the whole job.
Water pipe in to drain it, right? See,
So do anything. Right?
A road on paper, so we can put the road in. And this is why we were building a road in a swamp.
allowed to just drain it.
Pipe underneath it.
Road on the swamp. Corner property does not want a road behind their property, which is about half of the strip. So they don't have the swamp. It's the rest of the neighborhood that has the swamp. So this was the compromise.
Are there any other wetlands in the borough?
the wetland that's just out of the borough. that
Well,
White
'cause-
Township has.
Because you can wetland bank, right? Like you can expand one wetland in exchange for another wetland. I mean, you can't just do it willy-nilly, but there is a process, as I understand. So I mean, if we had another wetland that was expandable and not, it wouldn't flood someone's backyard, that would be, and then we could just put a drain in and drain this thing. But I'm just,
They signed, the whole neighborhood, including the individual came and said they didn't want it, all signed the petition a couple of years back and to put the road in because, and the petition asked to put the road in because of the danger between the swamp and the fact that it's difficult to get out onto Philly when you they don't have back access to their property. So there's a lot of properties right there. So when you're backing out, it's right around that corner where people are going very fast. So it's difficult for them. So that was what the petition said that was filed to us a couple of years back. Yeah.
It was in order to put in a storm water drainage system. Now we are draining a wetlands. To his point, okay, if you expand another one, but there are things that live there, right? And so there's a reason you can't just bulldoze wetlands. And so I assume this, I just haven't heard that answer. What are the downstream ramifications, no pun intended, being the wetlands? But like, okay, so we drain this wetlands, what have we just gotten rid of that we didn't mean to?
Right.
Because again, I am new to this discussion, so forgive me.
It could cause flooding down where I live with all the residents down there because we're downstream.
So the wetland area that we're talking about, it's about, I don't know, it's probably 100 feet, 100 feet by 20 feet. It's not a gigantic area. Up until 10 years ago, it was backyard. It was just folks' backyard. It wasn't a wetland, and that's sort of the issue. Part of the drainage that probably was created when they redid the intersection way at the end of Philly, recreated the drainage, and so we all of a sudden had more stormwater coming through there. And so over the last 10 years, it's expanded. If we put in the stormwater pipe, I'm assuming that our hydrologists are saying our system will be able to handle that and consider those downstream issues. Absolutely. We're going to lose that wetland, and if there are animals in there.
Because Marsh Run floods every time it storms. So I don't mean to argue with them, but it's already flooding every time it storms. If we had more water, it would make it worse.
Well, one difference I think also is I forget what year it was, Gerald, you might remember, right just east of that is where there's a retention area. And I know when Dave Fairman was on Public Works, I think they had cleaned that out because silt and everything had built up. So that's working more efficiently.
That gets cleaned out, I think, every
And
10
that's
years or so.
just east of there.
Something that happens every few years.
So I think the borough and the township share duties of cleaning that up.
Right, but I think that was recently done.
Reiterate what Casey just said. Half of the reason that people signed that petition in the first place is because there are elderly people living in that block who are scared to back out onto Philadelphia. If we only build half a road, then what happens? They drive their car down and sit there, or they all get four-wheel drive so they can drive down the walking trail and get out.
The road still connects to the other side of the other intersecting road. You just have to go around and you wouldn't be able to go through. Right, that's
So
the
we're
issue.
hoping we get some other options coming into public works. There wasn't a decision made, but there was sort of a decision made to revisit and think of some other options. Maybe we'll go with our original option to begin with. But so we're looking for that over the next
And the traffic does come in there to say, I think the same issue would be there that we have on South Sixth Street. People coming in right before that it's a divided highway with passing lanes and cars are coming in
fast.
And that's the first block they hit. And with the curve there, it's real hard to see. Right down, coming in, yeah. And South Sixth Street, we have the same problem coming off 422. They'll hit the borough doing 55 and zooming right through the neighborhood till they get to the traffic light.
Yeah.
Funding for this is coming from the county.
Yes.
Yeah. So this project has been planned, engineered, and we're basically stuck in a situation where not all the residents have given us their approval for easement, and this is our workaround that I think is going to work out to our advantage in a lot of ways.
4 out of 7 signed the easements, and prior to that meeting and the discussion, I had reached out to Nicole and said maybe she and I go take a ride and explain to these folks what the purpose is and why we're doing it. But then this reimagining has come up, so we're just gonna kind of hold for now.
So I'm gonna keep moving on the report. You can see there's obviously lots of work happening. One of the things I wanted to highlight there is that this was very visible. The work on the 8th Street lot was cleaned up in terms of it needed a lot of maintenance, and I think our Parks Department went in and cleaned it. And there's a number of plants were removed from the original plantings, and we're also able to review new planting and new planting plan that has the same sort of rain garden aspects to it. So folks see that will be replaced.
Able to salvage the plants?
They were not able to salvage most of the plants. They are replanting them.
Okay.
Moving right on through, our paving projects are going to be wrapped up by the fall, clearly. I don't think there's anything. Oh, the very good news on our COVID collaboration. Roland Francis has been working really hard on that, and is really part of a pretty big project that's involves the Allegheny Health Department as well as IUP. And that project has just been expanded and fully funded. So we're going to be partnering, having daily testing of our wastewater for a variety of viruses, and it's a good expansion of that collaboration, and at really no cost to us. Essentially, Roland does attend some meetings, but it's largely using our facilities for some good science.
They're adding monkeypox.
They're adding monkeypox to the list. I don't want to say monkeypox on that. We did have some new business that's coming your way. That's in new business. A good deal of Roland Francis' job is actually a pre-treatment coordinator, and so is managing our wastewater quality, and it is high, and our quality is high, and we're doing great. There will be some new limits that will be coming down the pipe, but those are, it's a pun, but those are our wastewater treatment plant will be able to meet those new limits. I think we already talked about the sidewalk. That was a street, vision that came out of community development. There's 3 projects. So folks came with there are 3 different places where folks came in and said, hey, these sidewalks really need to be improved. There are continuing improvements in terms of ARP and thinking about the active transportation plan. Sidewalks right on 7th Street, for example, right downtown, right on 7th and Philly, right in front of, I should say not the sidewalks, but the curbs in particular that have just deteriorated. So we're going to ask our folks to look for opportunities to partner with the business owners to get, get some of those projects fixed. And then I already talked about the municipal 8th Street lot. There's a plan to replant the removed wetlands plan. Then we had a short executive session.
Moving on, do we have anything from Shade Tree?
Yeah. They met on the 26th of September. Bob Cruzan, the arborist, is working with ordinance revisions. He's almost complete with the revisions, and he will present a draft to the Shade Tree Commission, and eventually it'll make its way to Borough Council. And they did soil tests in the block between 10th and 11th Street along Philadelphia, on Philadelphia Street between 10th and 11th Street. The soil test that they did came back showing it's very poor soil. It's very alkaline. No variations of tree are ideal for that type of soil. So the discussion is on the possibility of making the pits larger in the future and completely change out the soil. And Nicole Sippos and Kyle Mudry are working on grants for grates on Philadelphia Street, and the grants will be ADA compliant, and it will allow, give better passageway around the businesses that do on-street dining. Right now, it's like a bottleneck. And if we get the grants to do these grates, it will make it so that people can walk on them and be less of an issue. And there's, I think one of them is, they've tested is down by Napskachina Mia, and it's a plastic grate. And even if you have mobility issues, you can walk on it. So we're trying to get the monies together for that. And they'd like to purchase a total of 8 grates this way to put right up in town around the restaurants that have on-street dining or on sidewalk dining.
Any questions for Shade Tree?
Or is that like a practice run?
Started. Yeah. The practice one is the one down by Nick's, and I know after we talked about it in a meeting, I went down to see it, and it's nice. It's permeable, but it's seamless. You can, so if you had issues with walking or whatever, you wouldn't have an issue walking on the grate. And it's definitely needed. If you've been up around the Coney and some of the other places, it gets really tight with the trees and all. And if we get the grates, it makes it mobility a lot easier for people, whether they have ADA issues or not. So.
Anything else? Moving on. Nicole.
Yeah, I do have the paving, our second paving project is gonna start this Thursday and Friday. They're gonna mill. Again, that's Nixon 4th through 11th. And the good news is Shyrock is back on the plans for 6th through 9th. What happened was when the second paving project was submitted, we didn't go back and calculate the new roads. We did it off of our first plan. So when we calculated, when they started to come out to get the mill to mill, they figured out the what was submitted in the plans were different. So that's actually a good thing. What Shyrock's back on the table for 6th through 9th. So Shyrock 6th and 9th.
What's the matter with 9th through 10th?
So far, I know, unfortunately. And then just an update, the engineer and the project manager was here for the building. We met with them last week and we started to go over phase 1 of the building project renovation. They're going to start working on the site plans and the permits, and they'll be here next week to do a walkthrough of the building. So the phase 1 will be about 6 months and to get the permits and the site plans. So, and then more information to follow once that's all submitted. And this is good news and bad news to some. Kay Smith contacted me about IRMC Park. She, along with a contractor, landscaper, was gonna start next week to come in and do some the plotters, the flower beds on IRMC Park. The funding was available. She did secure the funding from IRMC to do the project, and she is volunteering some of her time. We did not get a plan for what she's putting in there. I'm assuming some rocks and boulders and some plants. If we would like for her to move forward with this, if council wishes, then I can let her know. If not, if we want to wait and see, if there's a bigger project in mind for IRMC, we can hold off on it. But again, the landscaper is willing to come in on next week, Monday and Tuesday, to do the work.
There's a project, so this is a phase one of a possibly bigger project, and I want to speak in favor of us saying, yes, let's do this. And I think at Public Works, I was like, yeah, let's go forward. And it wasn't unanimous at Public Works. But part of the reason,
Yeah, other than that she says we'll love it, and it involves a lot of rocks,
Who's a landscaper?
what she means to do. Oh, yes, and possibly 6 representatives of a possibly invasive species.
I'm perfectly fine with a volunteer moving forward with that. She came and talked to us at length and
I think it's a
fine.
good project. I think
Yeah.
it adds a goodwill towards folks who are in the community who want to see something actually moving. If there's a bigger IRMC project in the works, who knows? There's a lot of opinions there. This is something that's got wheels and can move, and it's on the ground and moving. And so I spoke in favor of it, and I think it's a good idea. And I thought that we were already on it.
I think more with Sarah about not knowing what it is. And if we are then going to go to phase 2 and go to IRMC and ask them for money, and they're going to say, we just gave you money.
Talk to them about it. This is they see this as separate projects.
Okay.
This is a phase 1 and a phase 2 idea.
Well, I have less of a strong objection then. So, but I still would like to know what it is.
That will include what?
We don't know. We've got to figure that out. That's been a stopper. We've got a lot of folks that got opinions about it.
Why won't she just tell us?
She doesn't want to deal with the bureaucracy, she says.
what plans that she's,
See,
She won't say what the plan is.
no,
I mean, she was leaving it up to the landscaper in some ways, but she had a list, like her plan was to have some boulders there. She's been maintaining this prior to us having a parks department. She has been maintaining this on a voluntary basis for many years. So
Albert Gracian.
Who the landscaper is.
she has somebody,
Guy, I've worked with him and,
So it's the younger Al.
but as,
But I think 2 of the beds, gonna add some boulders and some plants. Japanese maple is one of them.
right now it's mostly lilies and
I can't help but feel disinclined to agree to a plan that I haven't seen. I won't lie. Do this and have faith, and then we all hate it. And then what do? Look like idiots.
well, then we're stuck with it.
So we won't be worried about digging it back up because it's ruining.
no, I mean, that's the idea, is that it's easy to maintain, because she is at the point where she can't keep maintaining it. And we had just now have a parks department, but at that time, she was trying to think, like, if I'm maintaining this, what can I maintain?
Asked her over and over and over during the summer to come in and talk to Public Works and give us a plan and give us a plant list. And she never showed up.
Well, they said they got a plant list.
And now she's got a plan.
We've discussed.
Paul and Ryan and myself, and Sarah, you were there too for a little bit, and she was giving us an idea of like what was happening. Pull some the weeds and stuff, which they did. They cleaned up some of the beds, but there was still a lot more to do. So she was telling us pretty much the idea that she saw, that she wanted to do some boulders and some plants that.
It's the most important question. Does she need our permission? Or is this, she's just coming to us out of courtesy?
Yeah.
Last couple months, we knew this was gonna happen.
I guess I'm saying if she doesn't actually need our permission, then I'm not gonna talk anymore about it.
Responsible for maintaining that area. She owns property on one side of IRMC Park, but
Probably take about 5 minutes on the phone to get a drawing from Al.
So
This is not hard.
description,
They're coming on Tuesday. They want to do it. And we just found this out. Like, she just literally called and said, hey, we have availability. Can we come on Tuesday?
From IRMC, that's the funding is from IRMC. And the landscaper would like to come on Tuesday. But the landscaper is doing this pro bono, or is the landscaper being paid?
Being paid.
through that funding.
Question is, like,
The borough is not spending any money on this.
right, I understand that. But it-
We've offered Parks Department,
Yet.
Parks Department, and we'll maintain it.
And now it's been reduced to one side of IRMC Park, the two planters that are next to her building.
No, it's it's what she's been maintaining. It's all four of them, the two and two. Yeah.
It has no legal authority, whatever,
Well,
about the
she's coming to
property
ask
on the
permission.
other
I mean,
side
I
of the
get that
street.
part of it. I just don't know why we couldn't get a basic layout.
Because she doesn't want to give us one.
She came to the committee, did not receive what I would consider a positive thank you sort of welcome, and she doesn't intend to go through that process again with somebody. That's a wrap. If somebody's coming to you with $6,000 and a volunteer, I guess it's how you approach that person if you want to.
And that's sort of how that history works. So Kay came to us about a year ago and said, we have this project that's $6,000 raised privately from IRMC, sort of a verbal commitment through her relationships, personal relationships. And I said, I think we should not let IRMC off with just a $6,000 project for the park. I think we should try to think of something bigger. And let's leverage that relationship and try and do that. We now have a little bit of cash. And so that was my plan. I said, Kay, hold off on that, because I don't want IRMC to feel like they're not more accountable for a bigger investment, just $6,000. And so she did. She held off. She came to us last spring. Could have had this thing done over the summer, and she held off while we were figuring out our ARP to make sure we could have some discussion of a bigger project. We're kind of in that spot where there's at least a possibility of a larger discussion of a bigger project. She still has this phase one project, and we'd like to be able to just say, yes, go forward with it. We can get a plan. It'll be those 4 beds. There's some stones in it. There's some plants in it. I don't think it's everybody doesn't love it on our committee, but I don't think it's super expansive. And I don't think it's something that's going to be like a barrier for us in the future. She has definitely designed it in terms of having very little maintenance, because when she designed it, there was nobody maintaining it except for her. So
Yeah.
So 5-6 grand.
Yeah.
How, worst case scenario, be that it's rocks, it's some big rocks and some maples. How, let's just take this out to like, I can't quite kind of imagine like how bad that would look, that I would want to get rid of it, because I got real low. I'm not an aesthetics person, but like, what's the worst case scenario to have somebody undo this?
I mean, tearing things out is quick, pretty much no matter. I mean, everything is relative. The bigger it is, the longer it takes, sure.
You kind of the space and you know we're spending $6 grand on it. So like to undo that, what would it be?
So to put it back to dirt, I mean, a backhoe in a day, I mean, what?
back to what it is now.
I won't lie to you, I can't perfectly picture what it is now, so.
Daylilies.
So the more you have to put back in, that's gonna immediately start exacerbating the price, okay? So what my question, I want to know the plan is, when you say some boulders, rock beds are one of the hardest beds to maintain if you're not willing to spray chemicals. You're talking about hours of potentially pulling weeds, and your fingers will go numb doing it, because you have to do this over and over.
Yeah.
It drives you crazy. And so that's why a lot of people will spray weed killer. There has been some pushback when I bring up the thought of using weed killer to maintain some of our borough areas. So that's part of the reason why I would like to know what it would look like. Because if we're talking about boulder and boulder and boulder with a Japanese maple, then a boulder and a boulder and a boulder, the maintenance on that, although relatively low, if done in the most efficient way available, may not be the most desired way to do it.
What is our approach to use? This, no judgment.
I believe they do.
Else growing in between those rocks, I think it's a great thing to use personally. So again, someone says, hey, I have a gift for you, but I won't tell you what it is, and I won't tell you what it looks like. And by the way, once I give it to you, congratulations, you get to now pay for it for perpetuity. I mean, are they giving us a puppy or a book?
Like the public works director and the the parks crew leader was there with the conversation we were having, saying, okay, this is what time we can put into it. And they were, yes. I mean, but none of us are experts in gardening and landscaping. And we told them, yes, yes.
So I don't really have that much of an objection, truly.
Basically, this plan is going to be low maintenance. In the same way that the 8th Street parking lot bioswale was designed to be low maintenance, with the result that because it wasn't maintained and because it didn't get weeded for a variety of reasons, it grew a tremendous amount of barnyard grass and a year ago. And when the barnyard grass was finally removed, it left behind a seed bank that resulted in an even healthier growth of barnyard grass this year. That finally resulted in the parks crew essentially deciding that they had to destroy all the desirable plantings in order to save them. And I don't think that has to happen with this plan, but unless it, as Luke says, unless it gets properly maintained, it will.
And now is that we now have a Parks Department. We did not previously.
Starting in May, which had they spent 4 hours a week in the 8th Street parking lot, would have saved us $5,000 in plants.
One or two individual members of Borough Council of 12 people to micromanage staff decision, and I feel like it should be staff's decision. If they're comfortable with, if they're comfortable with the plan, they're going to be the one maintaining it. They know their schedules a lot better than I do, and I should not be in the position to tell them what they should do with their plans.
Somebody to come in and do this work this week could take a vote and say, no, stop, don't do it. Or we could do nothing and they will proceed. The only way we can say stop is if somebody makes a motion to tell them to stop. We don't even really need postponing. I don't know, because you've got a contract with somebody who's going to come in, changing contracts that way. We can't just
Project that we're running.
we can't just vote. I think we can vote to say no, or we can say nothing and it will go ahead.
Vote.
The motion, we're going to have a vote. All right. Moving on. Anything else, Nicole?
Could I ask Nick a question for Nicole real quick? I'm sorry. This is, I don't mean to sound like a pain in your ass, and you're probably going to think I'm a pain in your ass. Is there any way the action items on the packet can get put also with the notes from the different committees?
What do you mean?
Because I'm scrolling up and down like
Oh,
this.
yeah. I know what you mean.
So,
Second page, you mean, oh, you want them in the minutes?
sometimes the committee notes and
In the minutes, but yeah, I can, whoever's doing the like what minutes, they can bold those in the minutes.
Safety, I do the minutes, and if we're doing an action item in the minutes, it's bold faced and highlighted, so you know when you're looking. And it, yeah, I know what you're saying.
how slowly Peter was speaking while he was about to do his action. He's over there like this.
Did us all this afternoon.
It would help, at least it would help me, and I would appreciate it. If it's not possible, then I'll get over it. I'm killing trees, though.
Recorders for the various committees, because basically the minutes as in the packet are sent from the recorders. And so I think that might be just a question for the recorders instead of putting it on staff, that just to try to remember to put the action items in.
Request in the future that the people who submit minutes from each committee
tried to do that in admin. Sometimes I did. But
Sir, before I begin my report, I just want to backtrack to one thing that was said during the public safety minutes about the police department budget. I just want to reiterate that the budget is preliminary. Manager Cephas certainly is giving, there are numbers that I may not have exactly correct in some of the things that we're doing. So I just want you to know it's an initial preliminary budget. I'm not, no intent to, so when you hear the 1%, I don't want anyone to think 1% that there was something nefarious that happened. It was a preliminary budget, but that was by my explanation of public safety. Moving forward, I do have I do not have a full homecoming report, but I'm prepared to give a brief homecoming report from the weekend. And I want you to know that the formal report will be first issued to Mayor Simmons via writing, and then it will come to the Public Safety Committee in October, and then it will reach council probably the first meeting of November. So it will be very detailed. It will be in writing. I think last year's was 2 to 3 pages long in the form of a memo. But this is I gave a recap of homecoming activity to our partners at Render Broadcasting this morning, and I told them that I was giving this similar presentation to Borough Council. So I may not have all the answers to the questions that you have, but I'm going to give you a brief report to the things that I think you would be most interested in, and then full report to come. So the police department handled approximately 140 calls for service Thursday through Sunday, which was considered homecoming weekend. For some perspective, in 2021, we handled 132 calls for service. 2019, we handled 218 calls for service. And in 2018, we handled 169 calls for service. So we are certainly rebounded from the period where there was no contact with each other, but we have not experienced some of the more concerning behavior that would prompt our residents for calling the police this year or last, which is a net positive. Of those 140 calls for service, we made several arrests. The arrests were for things such as DUI, drug investigation. There were 4 fugitives from justice arrested over the weekend, simple assault, possession of marijuana, 4 people arrested for underage drinking, 5 charged with public drunkenness, 3 disorderly conduct. There was a retail theft from a local business that was handled by our department. And then there was a wide variety of other calls for service that either aren't criminal in nature or are open investigations that can't be reported on, or I don't have enough information to report on. My general observation from the weekend, and this is my professional observation, Thursday we experienced increased traffic throughout the day that increased as it got later into the afternoon and evening hours. Friday was a busier day in town than Thursday, but the parties and pedestrian traffic generally occurred later in the evening and late night hours, not so much anything that I noticed or that the department noticed as being concerning on Friday. Saturday was wet and cold. The parade was well attended and enjoyable. The IUP football game and the IUP tailgate area had large crowds during the day. Town did not have large crowds during the day, which again, I think is a net positive in the way that homecoming is probably supposed to have always been, which is everyone gathering at the football game and the sporting event, not so much downtown. So, and then again, parties and pedestrian traffic picked up later in the evening. We had several partners for the weekend, including the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney's Office, Blairsville, Punxsutawney, IUP, the Pennsylvania State Police Mounted Unit, the Pennsylvania State Police Liquor Control Enforcement, Pennsylvania State Troopers, Public Works, our Code Department, and our Parking Department were essential partners over the weekend. IFA and Citizens Ambulance were partners, and then general, the entire IAC committee, which has been well reported by both of our media partners, always contributes to a safer weekend. And of course, 911 and emergency management is invaluable to our efforts. And finally, I just want to acknowledge publicly that Summit Church once again provided all first responders with warm meals and fellowship throughout the weekend, which is extremely appreciated, if I've said that the right way. Very much appreciated.
Yep.
And so we thank all of our partners. Now, some of these partners have been with us in past years, and certainly there's really three facets now to every event at the university. There's a White Township component because the university has expanded into White Township. There's an Indiana Borough component, and there's an IEP component. So we work not only independently, but also collectively on these larger scale weekends. If there's anything more detailed that you'd like in a report, I would try to answer it for you at the end of my report, although I will become much more detailed in my final memo, and you can ask any questions off of that final memo that you like, and I'll be prepared to speak to everything. We've posted on our social media today, and I saw that the borough reposted it, and I appreciate it, that tomorrow, October 5th, is National Coffee with a Cop Day. And so, in the spirit of having a coffee with anyone in our community that would like to, we, or at least a member of the police department, will be at the Commonplace Coffee House between 9:15 and 9:45. We will be at the Artist Hand from 9:45 to 10:15, and we will be at Cafe Amadeus from 10:15 to 10:45. If any member of our community would like to come in and have a conversation on any topic in a very neutral manner, I encourage you to come. The Department of Justice, this is what the Department of Justice says about Coffee with a Cop Day. Coffee with a Cop Day is a celebration of community involvement, trust building, and partnerships. It's a day when community policing takes over around the world, building relationships one cup at a time. And it was originated in 2011. I will tell you the Indiana Borough Police Department does not need a Coffee with a Cop Day to engage our community or to work on building public trust, but we don't want to pass on the opportunity either. So this is what we're doing tomorrow. I know it's short notice, but if you do see a police officer somewhere that perhaps you haven't before, you just might have a coffee and conversation. So
Are you picking up the cost of the cop's coffee?
I'll give you that answer after the event. If 200 people show up, the answer is no, but
We'll have to see.
so
At short notice.
I do have one, and I believe this is going to be an action item for the committee, and I apologize, or the council, and I apologize for the way that I'm bringing this up in an impromptu manner, but there's grant funding available from the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Violence for municipalities in Pennsylvania. $5 million available in grant funding to municipalities and police departments within the state of Pennsylvania. I am not an expert on this grant, but I have attended meetings with Indiana County's chiefs of police and Indiana County District Attorney. And it has been discussed that a significant improvement is needed in the way that each agency communicates with each other through radio technology and through mobile data. And so we are collectively, as a group, Indiana County Police Chiefs, with the support of EMA, going to pursue, or would like to pursue, updated and upgraded radio equipment and mobile data upgrades. And we'd like to apply for it under one entity for the entire county. As we are the largest of the police departments, I am seeking your approval on behalf of all Indiana County Police Departments to attempt to secure upgraded radio and mobile data terminals. Indiana Borough would then end up being the grantee, and the other municipalities would end up being the sub-grantee, which would be laid out in the grant application. I am assuming probably be more of $450,000 because radio equipment and upgrades are very expensive. Because it's that kind of money, and because we're going to be sharing with all of our, we're going to be sub-granting the award if we get it to all of our partners, I would ask that a motion be made authorizing me to execute that grant application.
Someone who wants to make that motion?
Second.
This is a little bit in the weeds, but are you gonna have to administrate that?
So it's going to be, as discussed, a partnership. So Indiana Borough and I will be ultimately, I will say this, if it comes down to it, yes. But there's a plan in place. And I should say that it's important to note that this is a partnership effort. So although Indiana Borough is going to be the applicant, doesn't mean that the Indiana Borough Police Department is doing all the work to secure the grant. So
2011, when we got the last radio upgrade, the difference there was the county. I think the county, Tom Stutzman's office, they did the grant. And that's when they upgraded to the radio system that we currently have, which is roughly 10 years old.
it's very possible. What we've experienced is the fact that not every police department in Indiana County can communicate with each other seamlessly. And some of the departments around, and ours is not exempt, but the equipment is older. It either can or can't be encrypted. So we have situations where even though we're next door to a police department, we may not be able to hear what's going on in that police department. They may not be able to hear us. So as a group of chiefs, and everyone was invited to the table through EMA, we thought that this would be an opportunity because absent grant funding, just the radios alone would cost Indiana Borough north of $87,000. So that's just one municipality, which is why that grant figure would be quite large. I will tell you that if we don't get the grant, we're going to have to budget for this at some point in time.
I think when you got your current portables, that was through a grant through the district attorney's office to the tune of about 65 to 70,000.
So again, the importance of partnerships. So
12.
We'll just include the state police
I'll include the state police.
with them from this.
So
Better.
I'm not an expert on their channel, but the intention is Indiana County law enforcement will be able to communicate. So state police always are. Yeah, they're always.
And their system, their own system is basically statewide. So you could be in Indiana and talk to somebody in Harrisburg if need be. But they kind of do their own thing. But the nice thing with this, when it's done, and back in 12, when we implemented it the first time, I could be in Cherry Tree and talk to somebody in Indiana. The problem is now the equipment isn't, it's 10, 12 years old now. It's out of date.
Like years, it's 100.
Yeah. Somewhere, some way, somehow.
I have absolutely no idea. I know that the application deadline is October 13th, which is why I bring this to your doorstep. I think that that'd be a good problem to have if we needed to figure out how.
A motion on the floor. Does it need more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Final thing, the only thing that I do not have for council today is a police activity report for October. Because this meeting occurs at the beginning of the month, I've asked that I be able to present that in the middle of the month meeting. So that's all that I have. Thank you.
I'm to say to the chief, I did a ride along during homecoming. Just want to say thank you for allowing me to do that. Sergeant Hogue was awesome. Very informative. It was a very interesting experience. So I just want to say thank you. I don't think I was the only one who did a ride along, but thank you for, it was very interesting. It was very positive experience for me. So.
The presentation you gave on at the work session, the last, did you send that out? Did I miss that somewhere?
I am not certain, but if I have not sent it out, I will send it out. And then the October public safety meeting, it will be on the agenda.
See, I've been working with Manager Cephas on several issues. The Duncan matter is still pending in court. We're waiting to hear from Judge Clark on what he wishes to have next. With regards to, we talked earlier about some of those easement issues that we were working on. And then we have some things that we need to talk about in executive session, some legal issues, but otherwise, so far, I don't, unless you guys have anything for me, that's all I have.
Good. We're all legal. As far as we know.
As far as we know.
Okay, the IUP representative is not able to be with us tonight. She did send along a report. Everyone should have gotten it. Are there any questions regarding that? Share this with the press if they're interested later. My report. I want to thank the whole community for the support they showed for IUP this past weekend. The rain did not keep people from coming out for the parade or the football game. I enjoyed judging the parade floats, though I do wish they would go back to the more elaborate and creative floats of earlier days. Later this week, the Stormwater Education Partnership will meet, now under the leadership of Kyle Mudry, who recently arranged to acquire a bunch, how do you misspell bunch? I did, of olive barrels to be turned into rain barrels. We have two events to look forward to this coming Saturday. First is the annual Sustainability Summit, which this year will be held at the hub at IUP. This is a project of the Indiana County Economic Sustainability Task Force. Immediately after that, the 10th annual Downtown Indiana Oktoberfest will begin in the S&T parking lot on North 8th Street. And if you like, you can come by and sample some brews from Broad's Basement Brewery.
There you go. That has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
And that's my report. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to follow up to the public safety report relating to parking. We didn't just leave it hanging because of the fact that they need to continue to tickets. There are some alternatives that I think are out there that we want to look into, and one of them might be to use the parking garage and provide free parking in the parking garage after 5 o'clock. That way, people they say, okay, if you don't park at the meter, you park over there, you walk a half a block to the restaurants or wherever. So I don't want to lose that in the shuffle of things, because I think it's pretty important that we follow up with that. With the new company that's planning on coming to town, we do have some spots that we can provide for them for free, and not in the parking garage, but in other spots. So those are things that we don't want to forget about. The other thing is that October is the Fire Prevention Month, and the Indiana Fire Association will be sending out our fund drive letter. It will be in the mail on Friday. It's the only way we raise money. So when you get any phone calls or anything, that's not us. It's just one. And please be supportive, as it's very important that we get support. We provide the fire protection for anybody under zip code 15701. And it's and obviously our community is very generous. We have people that are generous and support us. So that's the story. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the mayor? Is there any old business to come before the council? New business? Then I'd like us to adjourn into an executive session.